Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We're going live. We're live. Joining me tonight, Fox 40s, Sean Cunningham. What's going on, Sean?
A lot, man. This is a busy few days. I have to do this from the palatial studio, or actually, this is in the studio. That's Chris Tavares, my coworker. Hey, let's leave that open. Actually, it looks kind of cool.
There's Chris Tavares thinking he's popular. We knew he would like kind of pop around back there. Chris likes the camera.
Chris Tavares, our sports director at Fox 40, and all-around good guy and huge Texas Longhorns fan. And he's already sweating with 8 minutes to go. Texas up 78-62 on number 2 Gonzaga. Gonzaga, actually. You got to say it right.
The Zags. Okay.
The Zags.
And, of course, joining us as well is from a bunker somewhere in an undisclosed location, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I am doing good. Last day of the, ideally, last pod from the undisclosed location. They're about to set me free and I'll be released here. And then I should be back to normal, but been good, been busy.
We need you. We need proof of life. We need you to like hold up a Sacramento bee to show us that it's today's date.
You still have that same shitty tie behind you. Can you wear it?
I do. Yeah, I can put it on.
That'd be great. Thank you.
He could go. We should ask him to go weird science and put it around the head, just like sideways.
Isn't gonna.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
Look at that. We're a professional.
Look at that.
In and everything.
Oh, is he going through the hood? He's going through. Oh,
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh yeah, you got to.
He's staying classy. Like,
Proper
perfect.
Windsor right
he's
there, yeah.
churching this thing up. He's churching it up. All right.
All right.
Let's do this. The Sacramento Kings, like winner chicken dinner. I don't even know how to describe it because I don't think I remember the last time they had a 4-game win streak. But before we do that, if you're watching on YouTube and you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. If you're new to the Kings Beat, make sure to subscribe. Everything's going swimmingly here. The Sacramento Kings are winning. And that's a big deal. Let's start with this Brooklyn game. We won't get into specifics of the folks who blew up as much as we will the fact that it's a TNT game, national TV, and the bright lights for a lot of teams that are in the Kings position. Especially when you get into that game, you don't realize that like timeouts are like 3.5 minutes. Like you could go get yourself an ice cream and come back, and you're still waiting to go check into the game. But I thought they handled it well. And Sean, as someone who's covered the league for so long, you know what I'm talking about. Like when you go national TV and you're a team who doesn't do that, who hasn't been in that position, it's really different. The games are like 25 minutes longer. Everything takes longer. And like there's usually a nervous energy with young teams who haven't been there.
Yeah, and it's also fun to see how coaches can use those long timeouts to their advantage. And I also think we got kind of lucky. It wasn't a 7:30 game, although I actually really love the 7:30 starts. I really do. I know I'm in the minority there. Yeah, I love them, man. I wish every game could start at 7:30. But that being said, like it is a little bit of an adjustment, especially for a team that's not used to it. And Kings haven't been on national TV in a while. They do it, I think, every year, but not necessarily like a home TNT game. So the atmosphere last night was just absolutely electric all throughout, I thought. And the crowd, if you were on hand, boy, you got really treated to something special.
Yeah, Brenden, there's something different about the national TV schedule, and like I'll explain just for people who don't know. ESPN game is a national TV game, but it's not quite the same, and the same goes for NBA TV. The only time that you can't simulcast a game, so NBC Sports California can't have a pre- and post-game show and can't have the broadcast, is when TNT is in town, from what I know. And it's been a long time, but this was your first, Brenden, this was your first TNT game. What were your thoughts? And Maybe you even got to see Jared Greenberg out there hanging out, and it's kind of cool, right? It's different.
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of people there. I mean, it's really just the energy in the building that feels different. They put things on all the seats. The fans were amazing. It was very loud in there, which is great to see Golden One getting back there. And obviously, it helps that the Kings came into that game on a pretty good win streak themselves, and had been playing really good basketball. But yeah, I mean, it was just overall, you could feel the energy kind of in the air, and sense that there was, it was just a big moment for this Kings team who had been clicking and playing well to really show that they might be an elite offense, show the national offense that, or show the national audience that. And that's exactly what they did in dramatic fashion.
Okay, so the Kings won 4 in a row. They started the season 0-4. Then they went like 2-3, and now they've strung along 4 wins in a row to get to 7-6. And I think the biggest thing that stands out right now that we're going to be focusing on is that the offense has been incredible. They dropped 153 on Brooklyn, and it could have been more. Like, I think it could have been more. Terence Davis is a star of this game, scores 31 points, 32 points, hit 7 threes. What this whole mentality that Mike Brown has is to stay ready and to be, when your number's called, go in there and give your best. And I think we're seeing it, right? It depends on the night who steps up off the bench, whether it's Malik Monk or Trey Lyles or Davion Mitchell. But Terrence Davis has this moment where he just shines so incredibly brightly. Sean, just what are your thoughts on TD, especially as a guy who, he's like the ninth and a half, 10th man in the rotation, and he just keeps, like, there are moments where he demands more minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's shown it on both sides of the ball, really, and he's being rewarded for it. You mentioned, I mean, this is a run and gun offense, and it's equal opportunity for really anybody. It's not like you've got guys that are set to have a certain amount of shots per game, and they recognize the hot hand. And if you can get out and transition and run and attack and do a lot of the things that him and Malik Monk have been doing, boy, that's something special. I mean, he stretches the floor. I loved it, man. He hit that three, and I actually had footage of it when I had shared to my timeline. He comes off, he gets bumped by Ben Simmons. I don't think it was a egregious bump or anything, but even TD's like not standing down. He's like, "Hey, you didn't mean to do that, right?" Or and they have like a nice little kind of gesture, and where that could have gone sideways at one point, and it didn't. And TD definitely was the right player for the right moment, and I think it's a real sharing of the love. At some nights, it's a different player. I mean, we've seen what a Harrison Barnes game looks like. We've seen what a De'Aaron Fox game certainly looks like. I love the fact that they go into national TV last night, and you're probably expecting a De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis to absolutely play remarkably well and be the star of the show. And they both played very, very well. Don't get me wrong, especially Sabonis. Sabonis was outstanding. But Terence Davis steals the spotlight. And the thing that I love too is like, even Fox said after the game the other night, they're all blending together. Who'd they beat?
Warriors.
Warriors, excuse me. After the
Warriors that
game,
team.
Yeah, sorry. So Fox comes out afterwards and he's just like, yeah, I didn't think I played all that well and I still had 20 points. Like he came out, the closing group did what they did. Fox was on the bench a little bit longer, comes out and he still ends up hitting pretty big shots down the stretch to kind of put him over the top. And I just love the fact that because I like Huerter every single night. I mean, it doesn't feel like that guy's ever going to miss. There was a Nick Friedel from out of town was sitting next to me and he's just like, every time he puts up a shot, it feels like it's going in. And it's like, I know. Yeah. Like him and Anthony Slater both. It was fun last night, especially having so much national media in the house, and they all kind of reap the benefits of a colossal failure by the Brooklyn Nets. And then they went and go talk to that team and just all the chaos surrounding the Nets. But yeah, man, 153 points. Anybody can get it on this offense.
Now, Brenden, you're a guy who likes the numbers, and going through, it's crazy. The Kings have the second-rated offense in the NBA right now, and their true shooting number, their effective field goal number, their assist percentage, their assist to turnover ratio. Everything is off the charts. I mean, not only is this team like a top 5 like 3-point shooting team, they're like number 1 or number 2 in field goal in 2-point field goal percentage. It's they're just scoring at will. Like, what are your takeaways, especially when you watch a game like that and you watch a guy like Terence Davis just go nuts?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the coolest thing on TD specifically, before I kind of get a little bit into why I think the offense has been clicking so well, is that like TD said post game that, and actually Mike, coach first, was the one that spoke with us and said that he might be harder on TD than anyone else. Or I guess that he is hard on everyone, but TD takes it really well, and TD appreciates it, and says, "Stay on me, coach." And then TD spoke with us and said the same thing, that the coach is really on him, and that's helped a lot. So I think that we're seeing like an adjustment period for all these guys where they look very comfortable in their free flowing offense, and you see the coaching staff starting to implement more layers to it. But it seems like maybe it just took TD a little bit longer than some of the other guys to finally get comfortable. And obviously he was just knocking down shots at a ridiculous rate yesterday. When you go 12 of 16 from the field, 7 of 10 from 3, like, I mean, for it to be 31 points on 16 shots is just crazy. But yeah, I think that their offensive system with the ball movement, and as we talked about earlier and played the clip a couple episodes ago towards the beginning of the year, Huerter talking about the ball is power and how much that keeps guys engaged when the ball is constantly swinging around. We've seen amazing ball movement and assist numbers to show it throughout these last 8 games that they've played, and they're just clicking. I mean, everything's working on that end. They look like a cohesive unit that's all on the same page. And like, do I dare say that the team might have an identity that they're forming?
An identity? What in the world? Brenden, how dare you say identity?
No, I actually really agree with that. I mean, we're talking about, what you feel like this team can be in the off season. And I think what we all came to the conclusion of, at least I did, I mean, screw the rest of you, but like,
screw you guys.
I feel like this team will be a top offensive team in the league, top 10. And right now I think they're number 1 in offensive efficiency. It is really incredible to watch one night to the next. And, you want to see them make those small, you'd love to see a gigantic leap defensively, but, you are seeing improvement defensively. It may not come through every single night, but you see it in situations, and maybe with a healthier sample size, it might come to light a little bit more. But the one thing that we know that this team can do, and Mike Brown said it last night, is they can shoot that. They can shoot that ball. And it's such a nice problem to have. It's a nice thing to see, because even though your defense is the problem, and you know that you want to be able to sustain good defensive efforts, you should be able to rely on your offense. And look, we've seen teams that can put up points and still get beat, but I feel like just the smallest amount of room defensively that they can improve will go so far for this team because of how talented they are. And someone has already mentioned it in the chat already. I mean, the ball movement, man, is so incredible right now. 39 assists last night, that's one thing, but even when it's not there, like they zip it. There's not a lot of hero ball. There's not a lot of ISO. And you see Mike Brown holding guys accountable. So far so good. It's really hard though I kind of caution things. You want to be like optimistic, but it's like cautious optimism, because I wonder if like this is the best people will feel about the team all year long. And I don't mean to poke fun. It's like, just remember this feeling. With you?
Right?
Damn it, Sean.
How dare you? Like, what the hell?
Just remember this feeling, right? Like you're 1 game over 500, and that's fantastic, right? Like this is coming off of a 153-point win. The team, the fan base is around this team with organic things like Band-Aids on their faces and light beams that only stay on till midnight, and it's great. Like these things are so great, and I just want to see this trickle throughout the rest of the season. Like stuff like this, I want to see more moments like that. And we caution it's early, a lot can go south, but you want to believe in it. You really do. And I think a lot of people, this is what it's so fun to be a Kings fan in a way. It's like the highs and lows, because sometimes people really set them up for some heartache by feeling too good to the one when it's like you've got a 153-point win over the Nets on national TV. This can't be your crescendo, right? But what if it is? And like, I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, but sometimes you get so high that your lows just hurt a lot more because you got so high, right? Take it with a grain of salt. Brooklyn is a freaking disaster, right? And I'm not trying to take away from the win. I'm really not, because next week's going to be a bitch. You've got 3 games in 4 nights. What if they lose all 3? And I'm not saying that they will, but I just don't let yourself be fooled, right? So just enjoy it, but just don't get too high. I think that's fair advice, right?
Sean just
he's just trying to
shit
make
all
sure
over all of you.
Yeah, he's just trying to make sure the comments remain, upset with him.
I think he's trying to get DB, if DB's here, to just not be a Sean lover anymore.
Oh.
Like, look, I'm gonna go through the numbers really quick because I think they're stunning, really, and I'm gonna get to why I think it's crazy where they're at. But they currently rank 2nd in true shooting at 61.1%. Their effective field goal percentage is also 2nd at 57.8%. They're 3rd in assist ratio at 19.9%, 4th in assist percentage at 65.8%, and assisted turnover ratio at 1.92. They're 4th. In addition to that, they're 5th in the league in 3-point percentage at 38.1. They're 5th in the league in 3-point attempts per game at 38.8. They're also 2nd in the league in overall field goal percentage at 49.3 and 1st in 2-point percentage at 58.4. Like, the reason why I am stunned by this and I want to give these numbers, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg on what this offense should be. This is a motion offense. Mike Brown has put in the first stage, the 2nd stage, the 3rd stage. There's 12 more stages to go. So when you get stuck, there's supposed to be all kinds of different moves that players are making to get themselves open. And we haven't even got there yet. We're just seeing the beginning stages of this offense. And the other thing I'll point out is the Kings, while they keep falling in defensive rating, I think they're 26th in the league right now. They're still at 114 a game, which is where they've been at for 2 weeks, right? The defense hasn't regressed. The defense is actually getting a little bit better, but the rest of the league is getting much better. The offense is just taking off, and it's crazy to see an offense that is this new with so many new pieces that is finding its really its groove 13 games into a season. And that's where again, Brenden, you look at the advanced numbers, again, the defense isn't great, but I think we could even dissect some of that and come up with some positives. Domantas Sabonis isn't fouling out of every game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I will say on the defense, it's a pretty low bar that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I think that they have just been ridiculous on offense, and when you're dropping 120 plus, you just have to be the worst defense in the league to not win those games. And I guess, to be fair, in years prior, they have been the worst defense in the league. So at very least, they're doing enough on defense to let their offense carry them, which I think is all they really need. I think that it's very sustainable for regular season success. I think if we're talking a postseason, that you can get your defense picked apart, but I'm sure that's a different issue that we'd be happy to have down the line with Sacramento's history. So I think regular season wise, that this totally works. I think that they do need to get better on defense. I'm not exactly sure how much it happens because that they should get a little bit better, but their just personnel defensively is just not great. They have no rim protection on the team, really. Sabonis is fine there. And like you said, he's not fouling out in the same way, but he's definitely not a rim protector. So I think that they just have to do enough there, and they definitely still need to improve from the current starting point. And I think it was Sean yesterday that asked coach, like, is it hard to pick apart a game like this and still find ways to be better? And coach said not at all, pretty much. And he was even commenting on their defense post game. So coach is never going to be satisfied and always try to make that end better, but it's just got to be enough that their offense can carry them, and it has been so far.
Their speed, Brenden, is like kind of a defensive mechanism as well. We're seeing teams come in here that don't want to run with them. And I love the fact that Karis LeVert pointed that out to Domantas. He shared that moment. That looks good, James. What is that?
It's a little Chardonnay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where you lose me, because I need red wine only. I thought that was like a scotch or something.
Oh, no. I can drink red wine as well, but it's a nice little Chardonnay.
Yeah, sorry, I got distracted. A little
It's
butterfly
right.
flew in front of me.
It's all right.
No, but I really feel they can use speed to their advantage, not just on the offensive end. Like, I think it does take people out of the game and force them to look. There are some teams that are better equipped to handle speed like that and play that type of game, especially ones that defend very well. And
Memphis.
we've seen that in years past. Memphis, especially.
Yeah.
We've seen that in years past where Dave Yeager would say, hey, we're doing it with smoke and mirrors, and we're doing it with a lot of running and gunning. And he's like, but there are other teams that can play that game better than we can. And you don't want to get into, you don't want it. Like Michael Malone used to always say, I'll be damned if we look like that Phoenix Suns team that all it did was just score, and to hell with defense. So I think it's early. You also will see how teams will adjust. And I think you're looking at a San Antonio team coming in here as young, and certainly they've had their struggles. They've had a couple successes as well. But as someone pointed out in the chat a little while ago, they play hard, and of course they do, right? Like, it's a Greg Popovich team. They've seen what it's like to get blown out. They've seen what it's like to compete, and that's a team that can probably run all day as well if they want and if they choose. So I just don't want people. I don't hope this team doesn't. It's good that they're experiencing this too, because they knew what that 0-4 start felt like, and to turn it around so quickly, I really feel is a feather in the cap of a lot of these players, because they know what it's like. It shows that they can believe what they saw in training camp and what this team could be, and I feel also like to turn it around so quickly. James, we were looking at a point like, man, the way that the league is set up, how can they get back to having a winning record? And they did it with 13 games, so really, really impressive. Resolved by them.
Yeah, and I'll point out the next two opponents are the San Antonio Spurs and the Detroit Pistons. We get to see Marvin Bagley on Sunday. Both of these teams, unless he gets hurt between now and Sunday, I'll just caveat that. Both of those teams have lost 7 of 8. They both started off a little stronger, and as opposed to the Kings at 0-4. But I think that's something that's really impressive about the way that the Kings have, you watched it happen so quickly. They couldn't figure out how to win games early. They missed free throws. They did silly things down in crunch time. They couldn't get stops. So the first 4 games we can kind of pencil out as those 4 games, we'll just pull them to the side, and they are what they are. The next 4 or 5 games, they go 2-3, right? And they're figuring out how to win. The only reason they don't go 5-0 in that stretch, very specific. The officials damaged their chances late in games. They hurt themselves by not putting teams away, but they also we're talking about a team that's won 7 out of 9 games, and the 2 losses come with apologies from the NBA. And even if you say, hey, look, they lost those games fair and square, whatever, you're still looking at 3-point losses, 2-point losses. We're looking at a team that all of a sudden is playing really, really well. And I think that that's promising. And the other thing I'll point out is, I know Sean hates to say when Brenden says should or could. To date, the Kings have not lost to a team that they should lose to. And that they should beat, and that's pretty promising, because look at the teams they've beat, but also look at the teams that that they should have beat. They should have beat Orlando, and I know, again, Sean, I know you hate that term. They should beat Charlotte, who's beat up. They should beat Orlando. Those are games where you walk in and you're playing teams that are shorthanded. They should beat the Nets. The Nets are a dysfunctional, like, shit show. They are. So you should beat that team at home. And to me, that's one of the more, like, the biggest points here is that, like, whether you want to say should and could and all that stuff or not, like, when you're at home and you need a win against a Nets team, this team shows up. And that to me is something that is very different than what we've seen before.
I'd say too. First of all, that's just a commitment to the bit, because you're going to lose plenty of games in the course of a season that
Of
you
course.
feel you should have won.
They'll still lose.
To that point, you talk to players and it's like, well, every game that they've lost, they felt like they should have won, and some of those are true based off of the way the officiating went in those games. You're going to lose games that quote unquote you should win, and that's just the way it is. But what I feel is great about what they're doing is experiencing this streak in a fashion that they have not been familiar with. I mean, when's the last time they won 4 straight? Like 2 years ago, right? If you take 5 straight beyond that, you have to go even farther back. Like this is like, it's crazy to think that this is a team that just hasn't had even that type of success, let alone the postseason drought that they've experienced. Just a drought of not being able to experience what a 5-game win streak looks like for years upon years is crazy. So it is fun to have them celebrate the small things. Mike Brown isn't, it's like, that's why he says, can you be critical? When I ask him, can you be critical after a game where you put up the second most points in franchise history in the Sacramento era? And he's like, oh yeah, of course you can. And I wanted to see how far he'd take it. That's why when I followed up, I was like, yeah, but can you even enjoy this? Like, are you enjoying this the way your players are? I mean, the players and the fans are almost glued at the hip right now. I thought Domantas Sabonis said it best at shoot-around before the Nets game, which is like, they feel like they're this one big family, right? And they're enjoying these gimmicky things, and it's like the fans are really an extension of that locker room right now. Hopefully, even if you're probably going to have a spout, and brace yourself, because like you may lose 3 or 4 straight, 5 straight, maybe lose 6 of 10. You shouldn't lose that energy, though. That energy should not wane just because you've lost a streak of games where you look like you're an average team again or a 500 team again. This is kind of piggybacking off what I said earlier, which is like, keep that same positive momentum, but just don't get too high over it, right? Because a losing streak can do a lot to bring it down again, but you want to keep that same energy flowing, because these players are really, I mean, look, Alvin Gentry said it last year where he's harping on, you have to establish a home court advantage. And while he's talking about the players not using that crowd's energy to their advantage a lot, there's a little bit I feel the fans can take away from it too. In this early going, this crowd is so much better than what we've seen last year, in my opinion, in these early games. But the players in this organization has given this fan base a reason to be excited again. And it's not just being back in the building because of a pandemic that's in the rear view. It's like, no, you put a quality team together that can compete, and you're seeing it already. And I think this bodes well for the season, because you're going to see, hopefully, a lot of organic moments that the fan base in the locker room will be side by side with and be able to enjoy.
Yeah, we've already started to see them, and I think that keeping the positive momentum going is really big, like you guys are talking about. I mean, they win these 2 games against San Antonio and Detroit. That's 6 in a row and 9 of the last 11. I was 7 years old, guys, the last time the Kings won 6 games in a row.
How old are you now? You're like 14?
Yeah, 17. So yeah,
sorry,
we're close. It wasn't that long ago, I guess, but yeah, I think.
What year was it, Brenden?
It was 2005.
That's
January
the last time they won
2005.
6. Yeah, I was going through it while Sean was talking. I found the 5-game win streak from the 2020-21 season, but to win 6 is a whole nother story. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the Kings Herald guys tweeted that out. I don't remember who it was. But yeah, they found 2005 for the last 6-game win streak. And again, it would be 6 in a row, 9 of the last 11. And the team would have a great momentum behind them. That road trip is going to be really tough, but I think it says a lot about a team when you win the games that you're supposed to. I had a should in the chamber for this conversation earlier, but I think that James used enough. So I think that it would be great to keep this momentum going. And to Sean's point as well, like it could die pretty quickly. I think if you lost one of these games, it'd be pretty disappointing. So keeping that going is a big deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is really crazy. Like Kevin Herter, like just to like the reason why they keep winning all these games is because we're having like individuals step up, but in a team concept. Like Sean talked about it, 39 assists versus a Nets. Matthew Dellavedova came off the bench. He's the only player who doesn't score out of 14 players who play. He ends up with 4 assists in like the fourth quarter. But like, what would he play? 4 minutes, 5 minutes? Like that's crazy. At 39 assists, that is a spectacular number. And the fact that the Kings are like at the top of the league in assist percentage and assist to turnover ratio. I was even looking like Sabonis, had all these fouls early in the season, which really limited who and what he could be. And the one thing that it has done is we're watching his assist to turnover ratio is crazy. He's basically a 3-to-1 at this point. His turnover numbers keep dropping, and this offense just keeps getting like better and better refined as we're watching it go on. But like I brought up Huerter. Huerter has in eight of the 13 games has 4 or more 3-pointers. He's shooting like 51, 52% from 3, which is nuts. But he's also shooting it like at something crazy, like, I don't know, 7.3 3-point attempts per game. We're seeing guys step up, right?
Crazy. Like, people are thinking like he can sustain that. And it's like the dude is going to have more opportunities than he had in Atlanta. Like, James, you and I thought that this is going to bode well for Kevin Huerter here in Sacramento.
526, Sean. 52.6% on 7.3 attempts per game. He's averaging 3.8 makes per game.
That could go away by like 10% and you'd still be going, wow, he's really lighting it up.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I'll bring up too, like when it comes to Huerter, like I bash on Buddy Hield, right? Like because Buddy Hield is a frustrating player to deal with, because one night he'll go like 7 of 9 from 3, and the next night he'll go 1 of 13. Huerter has 8 games with 4 makes. I mean, that to me, he's made a 3 in every game. He's had one game that we can circle and say was a bad game where he shoot 1 of 8 from,
and that was that first Golden State game, right? And I think he was 0 of 7 and then hit a huge one at the end.
But even still, like if you throw in, he's had a 1 for 8 game and he's shooting 52.6% over 13 games. A 1 for 8 game can have a huge sway in what you're doing because there's such a small sample size. But it's just crazy. And like the Will Z stat, shout out to Will Z, who's putting out some incredible stats. Huerter is like 21 of 26 on assisted 3-point makes from Domantas Sabonis. When Sabonis passes him the ball at the 3-point line, he's like an 82% 3-point shooter. Like, I agree. It's not sustainable. That number is like not sustainable, but
it's still fucking cool though. That is really cool. I'm
is that
sorry.
nuts?
That's just like you're thinking about a guy going 82% from 3-point land.
Dude, Sean, I can't shoot 82% on a layup. Like
seriously.
And most players, they can't. I watch Alex Len. Alex Len is an 82% in practice. He's not hitting 82% on dunks in practice. Like, is that crazy? Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I don't care. I don't care like how small of a sample size of your grouping. Like that's wild.
It's wild.
Yeah. Well, and obviously it'll slow down, like you guys are saying. But like Huerter's a really good 3-point shooter, and we knew that coming in. I think it was 41.9% on his catch and shoot threes last year with Atlanta. I think coincidentally Malik Monk was the same number, but like a lot of his attempts are off the catch or maybe one dribble in a 2-man game with Sabonis. Like, he is a really good shooter. This number is going to slow down, but I still kind of expect or think it's reasonable to expect him to still be one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. Like, and the most encouraging thing is not just that they're going down, but how many he's getting up when he's averaging upwards of 7. And I think a big question I had with Huerter coming in, like, was, is he going to be willing to take more shots? Because some players just aren't comfortable, like, given more opportunity, taking more shots. And he said it's been an adjustment for him, but he's very clearly okay with doing that and kind of expanding his role based on what he was asked to do in Atlanta. So if he keeps the volume, the number is going to slow down, but I still think it's going to be a pretty nice number at the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to slow down all that much because, to be honest with you, I think they're going to keep getting better. Like, he's not going to shoot 52.6% from three. But
What?
that doesn't mean he can't shoot 48. It doesn't mean he can't shoot 45. Like, there are guys who have historically hit 45% from three without any question. It's just like, how is it going to evolve? And I'm intrigued so much by the offensive side. Sean, how strange is it that we're talking about a Mike Brown-led team that the offense is remarkable? Like, it really is. I mean, like, this is it's the number 2 offense in the NBA as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably surprising some people. I mean, but then you just see the pieces that you put around him. I mean, we're talking the offseason. It's like, granted, when they trade for Sabonis, they have no shooting around him. So it's like, okay, it's gonna be wonky for that season for the rest of those games, and he only plays in a handful of them. But then you're in the offseason, you're like, oh, Kevin Huerter, oh, Malik Monk, oh, you've got some defensive spacing here. You've got some different things you're trying to shoot for, and then you're bringing in a guy like Mike Brown, who before he was the defensive coordinator, did a lot on the offensive end for the Warriors, and he's just spent the past however many years with Golden State and knows that the secret to their sauce is sharing the ball and let that ball zip around the gym and find the open man. And when you can surround a guy like Sabonis with shooting, good things will happen. And now you're sprinkling in a very fast-paced type of offense around it. Man, it's just it doesn't really come as a surprise. It's just how quickly can they pick up on it. I think the bigger thing is I didn't think it would happen this quickly. I thought it might take a figuring out. Like contrast that with Minnesota right now, right? Minnesota's kind of a mess. They go after a guy like Gobert. Certainly not a team you expect to play fast like this team is, but they're certainly trying to go in a direction that they feel that they can be this very long team and be a defensive juggernaut, but have offensive weapons. But how does a Rudy Gobert fit into a system like that? And it's going to take some time for them to figure it out. I think a lot of people still think that they're going to be an upper echelon, top 5 type playoff team. I'm not so sure, but it's a work in progress. This thing that Mike Brown and his staff are doing has really looked almost instantly well. Even in the games they lost, James, offensively they looked fine. It's not really, in my opinion, like I still don't think we've seen a game, and I'll have to go back and really kind of dive into numbers, but have we seen a game where they just can't shoot? Did they just? I mean, I think we've seen it for half of basketball.
The only game was the Golden State game. The first Golden State game where they gave up 89 in the first half, and then somehow like Huerter and Monk both missed threes that would have tied the game. I mean that's the way it kind of went. Hey, okay, so again, you're watching the Kings Beat podcast. If you're hanging out with us here on YouTube, give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. Also, subscribe to the Kings Beat newsletter. We're doing great things there as well, and you get all this sent to you right now. And the reason I bring this up is because Callum Lambert is here. And Callum, if I'm not mistaken, you're in Australia. And he has some really interesting stuff. So Callum I believe I sent him gear all the way to Kings Beat gear all the way to Australia. But it's really obvious what the Kings need, right? Like they do need one more piece. And like, not to be disrespectful to Chimezie Metu, because I think Metu's playing really well, but they need a shot blocker and they need someone who can be a rim protector for short stints. And at the same time, yes, Callum, I got your email. But yeah, my point is that like he makes a really good point. Like, could you give up a first round pick for a guy like Wendell Carter? Could you give up like is there someone out there that would fit in seamlessly to what the Kings are doing and give them an opportunity to take the defense to the next level without hurting the offense so much? And I think it's a really good question about like roster construction because so far I think what Monty McNair did was brilliant. Like I again, like most of the things are working out, and it's crazy that we're talking like this because the team's 7-6. It's not like they're like 12-4, but at the same time, you see this player arc that's like going straight up, and you can also while you're visualizing what's happening, you're like, okay, they need to get Sabonis some help because he needs that guy. And like Brendan, do you think there is that guy out there?
It's tough because I don't think it's just like the backup center. I think it has to be somebody that can play with Sabonis. Like I think the Mezzi minutes are working okay, and I'm just not that concerned about them because it's like 12 minutes a night. Like I'm more focused on like, can you get somebody alongside Sabonis that, like you're saying, can still be a part of this one of the better offenses in the league, but then protect the rim. And I don't know how many fours that is. In my mind, you have to keep Sabonis at the 5, and this is just part of having a team built around Sabonis. Like if you play him at the 5, you could have a phenomenal offense, but you're going to struggle a little bit defensively because of that, unless you can get a 4 that can protect the rim, which is pretty rare. And trying to think of guys off the top of my head, I guess there's like a Jared Vanderbilt, but he can't shoot. There's like Robert Covington, I guess, comes to mind, but on the Clippers, and they're probably in a situation where they're thinking they're going to win. Like it's a very specific archetype that I feel like is hard to find when you're talking about 4s, which is primarily what I'm thinking about rather than like a backup 5, because like I said, the Mezzi minutes are just like 15 minutes a night. I guess you could always get better, and maybe it's lazy of me to just kind of wave that off, but I think ideally you'd find somebody at the 4. Is Jeremy Grant that guy? I don't know what his rim protection is like, but there are some out there. It's just a very rare archetype in my mind.
Yeah, Sean, like what do you see the missing ingredient from this team that takes them from, like right now they're in the 8th seed in the Western Conference, but like if you want to be safe, you want to be a 6 seed. You don't
Right.
want to be in that play-in. You want to get to the 6, or you want to go up from there. Is there something that stands out that you're like, if they could get this guy, I think they could take another leap?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just need to see more because, quite honestly, I still don't know what that is. I think it's real easy to say, oh, they need another rim protector. Sure, as Brendan said, that's a tough role to fill and not make everything else look wonky. Get a guy who just can't shoot, or get a guy that doesn't fit an offensive system well.
Or just plug Alex Len in. Like
Right.
that's Callum said. Like that, I think
Well,
that was like a really good point. Like you already got that guy on the bench that can just block shots in Alex Len
sort of,
or
sort of.
Neemias Queta, but
Right.
that doesn't really work because it's not about the. You have to get a guy who can block shots and actually play, like Brennan said, next to Sabonis. It can't just be the 12 minutes a game that Sabonis is off the court.
Well, and it's also you don't account for someone who might foul a shit ton. Like you get guys that are pretty good defensive players, but can you do it without fouling? Can you show that you don't? That's why you don't want like a guy who's still trying to find his way. Like I remember someone had mentioned Bol, and look, I think Bol's a hell of a player, but you kind of want someone a little longer in the tooth that understands the role a little bit better. Personally, I think it's beyond just saying they need one more piece, like a rim protector. Like you need. Sorry, I know my mouth. Yeah, you almost need a better version of Harrison Barnes. I know that's not to pick on Harrison here, but like we still don't really have a 3, a solid 3. Maybe Keegan Murray is your 3 eventually. Right now, he's a 3-4, a little bit positionless basketball. You love what you see, but I feel like it's really kind of a their answer is to find better versions of that player, and maybe that's a Davion Mitchell 2 years from now. Where his role or he peaks at a different level than he does right now, if that makes sense. And they just got to play with the roster. Nothing's complete. They always talk about how, this isn't a finished product. And I know a lot of people say John Collins. I still think somebody like John Collins, someone's talking about OG Anunoby in the text as well. I mean, these guys are liked by their teams as well, right? So it's shoot for the moon. There's a name I was wondering would come up. I'm a huge Rui Hachimura fan. These are great names. You can identify certain people that would fit in well. I know a lot of people are really high on DeMarcus Cousins and what they saw in a tweet a couple of weeks ago. But while I still think DeMarcus is a hell of a player and could find a position on this team, he's not really a rim protector, so that doesn't really help you. And he's obviously much more of an offensive player, and you're not hurting there. I think Sabonis could use some help with the rebounding as well. I think Boogie does help you there, but you can probably do better. I think you really have to see what this team looks like 25 games from now, or 25 games into the season, before you can really make too drastic of a move like that. And I think that if they can just keep their head above water, hover around 500, they could be real players when that deadline comes a lot closer than where it is right now.
I agree.
I think Maxi Kleba was a great shout out from someone in the chat as somebody that wouldn't break the bank and can kind of play on offense, shoot threes and protect the rim at that 4 spot, or just a big that can shoot and protect the rim. And I think that the answer might be Dwayne Dedmon, guys.
Oh,
Stop it.
Damn it.
Leave.
Damn it,
you
Brenden.
leave right now.
Damn it, we're going to kick it, Brenden.
You say I get a lot of shit.
You shut your
in the
mouth
comments.
when you talk to me.
Yeah. Brenden, you're about to get absolutely dragged by the fan base. I think you can't mention the name Dwayne Dedmon and not just take an absolute beating.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay. And Victor brings up something. We discussed this on the last pod, the Ben Simmons thing. And I was like, hey, I would take a risk. He's 26. No. I was wrong. I'm not taking a risk.
What do you mean?
That's
you already gave up?
No, I watched and I'm like, oh no, you're a hot mess.
What game, bro?
You have no idea.
He's been bad this whole year.
But
I know.
He's been down, but when you see him, you're like, oh man, everything you're doing is tentative and weird and none of it makes any sense.
They look like absolute trash, though.
They are trash,
look,
dude.
The article that our buddy Sam Amick and Shams Charania had today with Ben Simmons and talking about some of the ailments that he has with the knee, that is a whole nother, Donahue, as we like to say. That's just a whole nother bag of that you have to account for. The asking price isn't nearly as good as what it was a year ago. And I just don't. I mean, here's a sidetrack. I mentioned a minute ago, Brooklyn's a mess, and they are. But what do you do? Seriously, I think you have to trade Kevin Durant. I really do, because as crazy as that is to say, how is it going to get better? Kyrie, probably, I would say stay away. Just we'll pay you whatever. Just don't come back. I'd probably cut him myself. Deuces. I'm sorry, you don't need it. And you're stuck with someone like Ben Simmons, who you hope that can still be a piece, maybe, but it ain't it right now. This team that team's an absolute mess, bro. I don't know what you do.
Well, even their coaching situation, where all of a sudden, they go with Jacques Vaughn. I told this story. I think it was my first year and my second year. I went to a visiting pregame, and Jacques Vaughn was, I think he was the coach of the Orlando Magic at the time, I believe. Anyway, I had a shirt on, and I almost always wear a sweater over a shirt. Very rarely do I just wear a button-up shirt, right? You guys can vouch for me. Anyway, confirm. Yeah, Jacques Vaughn, he popped off at me and said, "Oh, I see you're wearing the team colors." And I was having none of Jacques Vaughn, because I was like, "Come on, bro! Your team is like." So I responded, "No, I wore it to pay homage to your time with the Utah Jazz." And he just looked at me, and I just looked at him like like what, bro? Like I don't know what you want.
Sick burn.
Where you want to go here? I'm like, I don't know where you want to go from
You
here.
showed him, James.
But I'm like, F you, Jacques Vaughn.
Here's my question, though. Seriously, how did he not know that you're not like a team media, though? You know, like
Even still, it wasn't like a purple, flaming purple shirt. It was like it was a nice shirt.
Flaming purple.
Yeah, well, well, I mean, as a guy who has seen Air Supply in concert, there is this like satin purple you could wear that would be like, oh, look at that. Like, I did not show up in like a satin purple shirt. I was wearing like a modest, like I don't know what the colors were, but like either way.
I love this story.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is that you and Jacques Vaughn, not
Jacques
exactly
Vaughn can kick
simpatico.
rocks. Yeah. I'm like, well, I didn't feel bad with Jacques Vaughn taking a 153. I didn't. But either way, like, to get back to the point here, like that team is such a mess. Like overall,
It has nothing to do with Jacques Vaughn, by the way.
My point
problems are
was
bigger
like a
than-
week ago they were hiring a whole different head coach, and he was taking over this team, and they were going back to the playoffs. Sexual harassment be damned, and the whole entire franchise just feels like a complete and utter mess.
Yeah.
And if I'm the Kings,
Would
I'm
you
like,
trade?
hey,
Would you trade Durant? Seriously, would you trade Durant if you're them?
you
Knowing
have
that
to.
you've got there's no future. You like
You
I know
have
you
to.
Can, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you still have to sell tickets, and he's a superstar, and I get it. But if that's all you have, there's no recipe for success for that team. None. You've already seen it. You've already seen what this looks like. It's trash. And I don't blame the Celtics if that report is true that they don't want to trade Jaylen Brown for him. I probably
trade him.
wouldn't either. No. So if we're going to see a rudderless Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant at the helm, and that's what it looks like for the next 3-4 years, they're not going anywhere. I don't know what you can add to it, but it's what the pieces they have ain't it. And yeah, man, it's wild.
What a mess. I mean, go ahead, Brent.
It's not it, but it is still Kevin Durant. I will say, like, I don't feel like the only option is trading KD. I see how that could be their best option, but like, you definitely try and see what you can get with for Kyrie and Simmons, and you just try to restructure around him first, just because it's Kevin Durant. It's a top 5 player in the
for Kyrie
league.
Irving, bro? Who's trading
No,
for
I'm
Kyrie
saying
Irving?
right. It's
Who's trading
probably
for-
not happening.
Ben Simmons, you owe him
it's
like 135.
It's probably your best option to trade KD. I'm just saying it's not the only option. Like, it's Kevin
I can
Durant.
see-
I would do
I can
everything I
see-
can to try to build around him first.
I mean, you already tried it though. I mean,
Will you try again?
You've tried it. No. I mean, no one's trading
Did
for
it get
Kyrie.
better? It didn't
No.
get better. Between
No.
now and
No
then,
one's
it got worse.
No one's trading for Kyrie.
Yeah.
I can envision a market for Ben Simmons. I really can. But not for Kyrie. It ain't happening.
But the market for Simmons
Is the guy-
isn't.
like,
It's a
if you're telling
salary
me-
dump.
I can see
that's
Kyrie,
it.
Yeah. I can see Kyrie Irving, by the way, like on the Lakers next year. As a free agent, right?
I
Like,
could also
just-
see Kyrie, like, not playing NBA basketball ever again and being on like Newsmax, like that. Like, that's where we're
Very
at with
specific.
this guy. What's
Yeah.
that?
I said that's very specific.
No, but I mean, that's where, like, you
Yeah.
can see him be, like, just not part of the league anymore because he's chosen a path of insanity in a lot of points. Like, and it's like, hey, man, do you fit in the league anymore? And the answer is a lot of times, no, you don't. You don't fit in the league anymore. Like, what are you? You're a great basketball player who just won't stop talking. And there's one thing about, like, shut up and play. There's another thing about, like, oh, okay, where are we going? Like, this is lunacy. And that's where he's reached. And like, you talk about going to the Lakers. Really? Like, I mean, do the calculus there. Like, does that make sense? Would the fan base buy him? Would the Lakers buy him? I don't know. I don't know how you can. Like, he's almost untouchable.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the other thing. Like, people are talking about the trades. Like, first of all, if I'm an organization, I'm not touching Kyrie this year. you're too close to all the baggage that happens. Plus, he's an unrestricted free agent, so expiring contract or not, like I don't see how. I just don't see it, man. I don't know why you'd want to I don't want to bring him on. It just hasn't worked. The guy, Jared Greenberg, had a great point on his report on his TNT report last night. Like, he's missed more games over his course with Brooklyn than he's played in during his time there. He's just a completely unreliable player. Even if you take away all the baggage, he's just an unreliable player. So your best bet, if you're a team that thinks that there might be life there to Kyrie, sure, you can sign him in the offseason and he won't, cost you nearly as much unless you just value him as a expiring piece. But I just don't see anyone doing it, man. I really don't. I can see a market for Ben Simmons, trading him and hoping for to be able to crack that code somehow and just hope that he's healthy and get past some of the mental hurdles that he's had. And look, he might have been one of the brighter spots that they had last night. If we're being honest, it wasn't. Yeah, he hasn't had a point production like that in a while. I thought he was pretty decent, but the team was just a mess. I mean, if he had to pick one guy that looked good, Durant hit some shots and Ben Simmons kind of played okay off the bench.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's better than Claxton. Claxton stood no chance
terrible.
guarding Sabonis.
Right.
I love Sabonis against the thin shot blocker guys. It's like, oh.
I know we went to Nets talk, but Sabonis is playing really well. I know
he's
been
been
aggressive, Sean.
incredible, man.
I remember, was it you, James? I looked at you. I said, "This is the Sabonis I keep talking about. Like, just pummel your opponent down low, play bully ball, get to 20 points. This is.
I think you talked to your other friends on the other side that you didn't hang out with me and like.
What do you mean?
Just mess with you. Yeah. Sabonis is playing extremely well. Fox is playing extremely well. Monk is playing extremely well. Kevin Huerter is playing extremely well. Quietly, Harrison Barnes was a monster. Like, I know people could say, oh, well, like, Harrison Barnes was so good against Kevin Durant. He matched him almost point for point in the first half. And you went away from a little bit late, but at that point, it didn't matter. You had already crushed those guys. Like, a lot of these guys, you've kind of, put out, buoys and, okay, can we keep floating until some of these guys start contributing? And once they contribute, then it will become easier for a guy like Sabonis. It will become easier for a guy like Fox. And I think Huerter was the first guy to say, okay, I got you. I can keep this thing afloat, to go with Fox and Sabonis. But now we're starting to see these other players start to pop up. And I think the cool thing about this team is we still know the core guys. At first we thought it was 8. That 8 is completely changed because I don't think Rashawn Holmes is part of that 8 anymore. And so you cut down to 7. But then on top of that, we're starting to see how they work together, how they blend together, how they start to excel and find their niche within the small groups. And I think that this team, again, it's intriguing to me. I don't know that they're going to make it to 500. I don't know that they're going to make it to the postseason. But at the same time, at this point, there is so much positive energy going the right way with this team. And I think it's pretty cool.
It definitely is. I caught myself in a moment last night being like, is there a chance that this team is just above 500 the rest of the year? It is a small chance, but I think my point is just the fact that I'm even contemplating that says how good I feel about this team, because their offense is killer and it doesn't feel like a fluke. Some of those numbers will slow down that we've talked about, but the blueprint's there, and already being accepted and functioning well. It's just going to keep getting better. So, I mean, yeah, there's good reason to be optimistic right now, I feel like.
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, this is part of what I'm talking about with the don't get too optimistic. I mean, but it's hard not to. I mean, you see just the people that they've beat, Cleveland, Golden State, Brooklyn last night, playing well against really good upper echelon opponents that you would consider to be upper echelon, Brooklyn notwithstanding. And it's just man, the way they've played lately, they really have it figured out, and it doesn't look like there's it doesn't look like you can be overly critical defense, certainly, right? But like to the point of the way they're playing, the way things click on offense, the way that Mike Brown holds accountable, the way that we've talked about how it's a new person every single night playing the star. You almost kind of hesitate, and you can see why someone might go, oh man, they're going to be way better than the play-in tournament. They're going to be, this team, if they can keep this up, you're going to see a deep playoff run. But again, it's 13 games or however many games it is now, and you just try to keep the reality in check there. But I get it. If you were in that building last night, it was going to be hard not to think that your team is destined for something special. I still think something can be pretty special if you're in the back end of the playoffs getting in, but you just have to not, because once you get too high, the lows can be really low.
All right, let's get to the business of basketball. We got a couple of topics. We got two topics I'd like to discuss. Number one, we're watching the LA Lakers just fall apart. We're watching the Brooklyn Nets fall apart. Is it possible we're seeing the end of the super team? And is the super team, which I think has been horribly destructive to the NBA, but like, is this it? Like, are we going to, because I kind of feel like I talked about this today on D-Lo and KC on ESPN 1320, that it almost feels like the super team, where these guys buddy up and like go somewhere together. It almost feels like that was just a specific group of players in a specific group of time. Am I off with that thinking? Like the LeBron James, like Chris Paul, although he doesn't end up like joining them, but Dwayne Wade, like the Banana Boat crew. Does it feel like maybe this was just a moment in time in the NBA, and at the end of the day, they were beat by a Golden State Warriors that was more organically grown? While they did add KD, they were also a championship team before KD. But does it? Do you guys feel that?
I think it just takes like a specific group of personalities. Like, I think that the Lakers specifically got too caught up in like, just give us the stars and we'll be damned how it fits and the personality mix, and we're going to make it work with the talent. And I think that is probably going to, I just don't think we'll see that as often. Like, I saw it similarly with Brooklyn. But the times that it's worked is in that Miami situation, they all have a relationship already going in, Chris Bosh, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade. And then you need a Bosh. You need a guy that's willing to be the third guy and kind of take a little bit of a step back. Like when it comes to the Warriors and KD joining, like Steph and Clay are not players that are like feeling like they need to get X amount of shots up. Like they don't have Steph. It doesn't seem to have much of an ego when it comes to sharing the floor with guys. So I think that there's definitely still personalities that do mix. But I think we're going to see probably more teams like try to construct it like Milwaukee. Like you have your star, and then you have these other guys that star in their role as the complementary pieces, like a Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton on the right night are all stars. Brooke Lopez was all defense for a little while. Like they have other really, really good players around. But I think that we're just seeing the importance of kind of depth in the NBA. And so I think my long answer to your question, I think we will see less top heavy teams where it's just stars at the top and afterwards it really falls off. But we'll probably still see a group or two of guys that happen to be friends and decide to go want to team up. But it does feel like it's getting less likely now that we've seen some attempts not go so well.
That's such a tough question. I think no, because I still think you're going to have, it's still a players' league, and they're going to want to situate themselves with other top tier talent, and I think most executives would want to see it too. Most executives will try to build their team with the top tier talent, and if it's a good problem to have if you have a quote unquote super team. And I also think what we know of super teams now compared to 80s and 90s, I think you can look back at the Pistons, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Celtics, and say those were super teams. Contracts were obviously quite different, but knowing what you know of the Hall of Famers on that team, how are they different than the quote unquote super team of this era? When you look at a Miami Heat team of LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, right? How do you look at that and not go, well, you've got Kareem, Magic, Worthy, all these different types. You've got Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and, pick your poison. You look at Jordan and Pippen. You look at Dumars and Isaiah and Bill Laimbeer. Like, you can kind of see it. Like, there's always a three-headed monster, it seems. I think look at the Pistons of the early 2000s, where all five of those guys made the All-Star team. Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace and Chauncey Billups. I mean, I feel like you're still going to have that. I do feel sometimes that you will get a team much like the strategy of Miami, where you're gonna buy into, let's just have one or two stars and try to. Every team tries to find those right pieces that can play around it and fit a system. But sometimes you get these players like LeBron, like Kobe Bryant not so long ago, that just totally, the system is those players. What are you looking at, Brendan? What was that?
Somebody asked if there was a Warriors hat, so I was looking around.
This isn't Brendan's bedroom.
No, it's not.
he's going somewhere where there's internet.
I mean, my God, man, you just said the Warriors. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, like those. That's a pretty super team,
Sean,
if you ask me.
Sean, the difference,
yeah.
It's very basic. The difference is that Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, and name that Celtic were drafted by the Celtics. That
sure.
Magic Johnson, James Worthy, Kareem was not, but Magic Johnson, James Worthy were drafted by the Lakers. That
right.
Steph, Klay, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Kevin Looney, they're all drafted by the team. And so the difference, I think, is that while Dwayne Wade was drafted by the Miami Heat, the other guys joined him to go win championships. And what we saw from Boston, where they traded for guys to create this super team, to me, it feels different. But like, it's not like having two guys. Even if we look at Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, all three who will be Hall of Famers at the end of the day, like, those were all drafted players. I think having two players that you try to create a super team and then go around, so like Kobe and Shaq, that's different, because then it was like a bunch of role players around them, like good role players. I think it's interesting. I think we might be seeing the death of the super team. And, we've seen other iterations that didn't work, that were attempts at a super team, like Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony and all the guys that joined the Knicks. But like, it kind of feels like that era might be gone a little bit, and it might be more organic, where you see a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers who add a bunch of role players and then go swing for the fence with a star, and hopefully that pieces together and that makes something different. I don't know. I think it's an interesting discussion, and I think we'll probably continue that discussion on another pod too, because I don't think it's gone. I don't think that that's something that that we can sort of track today and say it's over. The one other question I had for this specific pod, as part of the business of basketball, is, and I know Sean's got work to do here at Fox 40. That's why he's there. Is this the most marketable team that the Kings have had? And have they figured out, or maybe it's happened organically, how to market their players to their fan base? Because it's something that I have pushed for with the Kings for a long time. Like, I don't think they understand how to market their players to the fan base. I think the last time the Kings had a good idea in marketing their players to the fan base was in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, when they everyone lined up at Carl's Jr. and got their bobbleheads. Outside of that, I think it's been like a mess. And
well, That was Carl's Jr.
Well, it's Carl's Jr., but that was in partnership. So, like, my point would be, like, Sean, you're a Giants fan. Tim
Yeah.
Lincecum, like, mullet was a
Let Timmy
thing.
smoke.
No, like, you could go to the stadium and they did mullet giveaways. Or
Well,
you
the
could,
panda hats were probably bigger.
and the panda hats, the same thing. Exactly, right? Well,
Even
Kings,
the captain hat now this past year, which is kind of dumb, but
okay, but,
yeah.
like, why do the Kings not, they can't attach themselves to a player, to a fan base? They have not been able to. Even, like, I've talked about it, like, why could you not have figured out a Dragon Ball Z De'Aaron Fox, like, pokey head, like hat? Like, why couldn't you have figured that out? And all of a sudden, we got these crazy ass Band-Aids. We've got the Beam team. We've got Headband Herder. We've got
those are
all
two-
of these things that are
I
happening.
see you working. I would say this: Dragon Ball Z. Obviously, there's some licensing things there. Band-Aid you can just throw on, and you partner already with right, like you already
with your
partner
team
with
partner. Hey, can you get us 5,000 Band-Aids? Like,
you're already
come
partnering
on.
with a hospital. There's plenty of Band-Aids around.
There's a hospital attached to the
yeah.
building.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see you working. I think a lot of that too happens to be based off your partnerships, because when you go to a Giants game and it's a bobblehead day, there's a sponsorship attached to it. There's, you got a free whatever giveaway, there's a sponsorship attached to it. It's harder to get sponsors like that in Sacramento. But I will say this, like, they've had moments, and I think some people have already pointed out different ones, but they've done a pretty nice job with the way they would market a certain guy for all-star attention. DeMarcus Cousins comes to mind. Tyrese
was his
Halliburton,
people.
even the like a bobblehead giveaway, the headbands that were around the arena. They had a headband night where everyone was wearing Boogie to NYC. They're few and far between, but I also feel like they haven't really had the type of player to give fans something to really be on that level with. I will say I like these things that happen organically.
Yeah.
The Band-Aid is a beautiful is a beautiful kind of example of that. Even when you have someone like Fox who kind of likes to poke fun at it, but there is something to it. And you can go back to Iman Shumpert and the Scores. Those Scores T-shirts were not made by the Kings. They weren't even sold in the team store, I don't think. I mean,
They were
like
made by Iman Shumpert and his people.
Yeah. Right. What my point is like, but that happened organically, right? I think.
Well, did it though?
When you get into, sure it did.
Did
I mean,
it?
it was Amon saying the scores is here, the scores is here, and fans really glommed onto it. I think sometimes because you get a lot of too many chefs in the kitchen in a marketing department, that sometimes some of these things can maybe not see the light of day, or they don't come from the right place. I'll put it. I see what you're saying. I'll put that aside. I think the best thing to utilize in a marketing ploy or getting your fans behind something is really comes from your players themselves. Look, everyone loved Harry Giles, right? His attitude, his personality was infectious. Iman Shumpert is kind of like, people glom onto the people that they like and have those type of personalities. And if you can be one of those players, you don't have to go far. Tyrese Halliburton was beloved until the JJ Redick podcast. These are things that people want to hear from their fans. They want to be that within arm's length of their personalities and bring their personalities to the forefront. I think when the headband, not the headband, but the ninja headband that De'Aaron Fox wore, I think fans loved that until the NBA said you can't have fun and got rid of that. Like, I think there are moments that you can have, but I think they're better done organically than something that the team necessarily does. But I will give the team credit, man. They came up with the beam, and this team in the locker room, not just the fans, they absolutely love it. So you got to give them credit. My only thing is keep that shit on till past midnight, so not only I can see it, but like I know that you can't. I've already had people tell me to knock it off when I say that. Like, there's probably FAA restrictions or something, but yeah, man, I'd like to know what they are, because I feel like you should keep that lit up until the sun comes up. But That give them credit. That started with the team themselves, and it's something that the locker room loves, and the fan base out there chanting "Light the beam." Like, that's awesome. That's really cool.
The only way that you're able to, at least in my mind, to successfully like market a team is if they're winning, like, and or at least competent. Like, they've been so bad in years prior that, like, what are you supposed to point out? You know, the last thing I can think of is the scores, as Sean pointed out and the chat pointed out, and that was the year that they were playing well. Like, I think that Sean has a really good point with the personalities. Malik is an amazing personality. Kevin Huerter is a great personality. Like, there's personalities on the team, but to me, a lot of it just has to do with, like, they're good. So people are going to be paying attention and talking about it more. And some of these are going to organically happen. Like, if Malik Monk was wearing a Band-Aid and they got their ass kicked 2 nights in a row, I don't think anybody would give a damn about the Band-Aid.
Yeah, and think about it this way, James. Like, you saw DeMarcus Cousins on the side of a building before he'd ever played a game. Like, some of these guys hadn't done anything yet, right?
Here we
like,
rise.
You want to temper enthusiasm. You want people to be excited, but you want to temper expectations. It's like, do something first. Like, get there, you know? I know people just get so freaking excited about whether or not De'Aaron Fox or Domantas Sabonis, I think you got to throw him in there too, make the All-Star team, which is great, but this team isn't trying to win All-Star games, it's trying to win championships. Like, who gives a shit about the All-Star game? You'll get someone in there eventually if you're a good team. One will take care of itself. It's harder for Sacramento to get players in there, and we realize that. But, like, if they can continue this, it's going to be a no-brainer. You're going to have to put one of those guys in, maybe both. And I know if Kevin Huerter keeps shooting the way he is, he'll be in the three-point shootout. Yeah. And I think we can already expect the likelihood of seeing Davion Mitchell and Keegan Murray in the rookie game. But they're not worried about that. They're trying to win games. So, you know.
That's interesting. Could you get 4 guys, 5 guys to All-Star
Sure.
weekend? That's interesting.
Well, I think you could. I think look, it's going to be hard to get anybody in the game.
I agree with
we
Megan.
know this, but I will
Sean
say,
took it too far with the championship. Meg, you're right.
Right, I know. I
Yeah.
did. But can I
Yeah,
but like,
he
think
meant
of it this way.
playoffs.
We talk about whether Fox is going to be an All-Star. Well, you know, and how I've always been like, it's so hard to make it in the West, and you know, I point out all the guards that are in the West. I think your best shot is Sabonis, especially if he's averaging. Look at these numbers. If he's averaging 20 points and you already know what you're getting on the rebounding end, how do you keep him off? He's got an easier path to becoming an All-Star and coaches voting for him than Fox does in the West with the way the guards are.
Okay.
To me,
I would
that's
say
the one that I can almost see.
I would say though that with DeJounte Murray leaving, with with Donovan Mitchell leaving, and with Chris Paul taking a step back, sure, Damian Lillard deserves a spot, but I mean clearly Klay Thompson doesn't deserve one of those spots at this point.
Desmond Bane?
Desmond Bane might, but Desmond Bane is about to miss 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer, and so that's going to hurt him as well. And so, like, look, I think there's like a freeway running right down. Like,
Yeah, it could.
just keep
for
playing,
sure.
just keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be just fine.
Right.
Anyway, I think it's interesting. I think that this is like one of the most marketable teams that I've seen from the Kings. I think that they're fun. Like, even the other night, we were in the locker room interviewing De'Aaron late, and Kevin Huerter came in singing, like, just like dropping like his.
Yeah, what song was that?
I think it was Country
It
Rose.
was like a country song. Oh, yeah, okay.
It was, yeah. But either way, like, you're like, huh. Like, they just have a unique personality, and some guys are getting left behind, and I hope that they wouldn't. And the Kings still have some players that they can move to go try to improve themselves. But I still, like, I like the vibe. I like who they're becoming. I like the fact that you can look at 0-4, 2-5, 2-3, and 4-4. Like, you're seeing this massive improvement every step of the way. And hey, look, like, they got a shot here to run this thing out to 6 games. And then who knows? If you got a 6-game winning streak, that means something different going into Memphis, going into Atlanta, than starting over and being, back at 500 or maybe, a game over 500, as opposed to being 3 games over 500. You walk in with some momentum, I think you might got a shot to split those first 2 games on the road trip. You might be able to come away from that road trip 1-2, or 2-1. I don't think you're going to win all 3, but like again, momentum is a crazy thing in the NBA, and if you can capture it and harness it, then you got a shot. Okay, Sean's got to run, but Brandon, you want to stick around for a few minutes and field questions from the good folks here?
Sure.
Sean,
Oh,
do you have any final thoughts, Sean?
Get out.
No.
I do. I'm going to
Yeah,
miss
let's
you
hear
all.
it.
No, my final thought actually about this. James, you were there too. We were sitting there with Bano Udrich last night. And
Bano.
I know it's all, the Kings playoff drought is old enough to drive, but you think about how like different things that constantly remind you of that. And I'm like, man, it's been so long since I've seen Bano a couple times in summer league, and he's scouting now, and he's done some stuff with G League, and he's been an assistant coach. But seeing him, and I was like, when's the last time he had been here? It'd been a few years. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, my God, it seems so long ago since I remember Bano Udrich as a King, but it was the year after they just made the playoffs. So, like,
Sean, he was there my first year. He was there my
Right,
first
like,
year.
Well, and that part trips me out because I know that I forget how many years it is, but you haven't covered the Kings in the playoffs, and I have because I'm old AF and have been here since '01. But like, my God, man, like I was looking
He
at
just
him,
flowed that, Brendan. That got you.
Old AF.
old AF. I'm trying when I try to watch my language.
It's
I
old
do-
AF of you to say that.
but we were having a lot of like conversations about the glory, not the glory days because they didn't make the playoffs, but like just his time here in Sacramento. It was a lot of fun to catch up with him, and I'm just thinking to myself, my God, it's been that long, and look how old he looks. Like, he looks great, don't get me wrong, but he certainly looks a lot older than he did as a player, noticeably older, as do I from back in that time. But yeah, just another freaking reminder of just how long it's been. So
It's funny. You
was
bring
cool
up
to see.
Bano. My first year, Bano avoided the media like the plague. He didn't want to talk to us at all. But when you got him, he was incredible. Like, absolutely spectacular. And he unloaded. I remember, like, something I wrote, like, went international because he just slayed the Slovenian national team. Like, it was like, oh no, like I was like, holy cow, he just went off. And I always thought he was like really bright, really, really cool to talk to. He just didn't want to talk. I mean, that whole year we might have talked to him like 5 or 6 times. He just avoided the media like the plague. And then at the end of that season, he was traded with the number 7 pick for John Salmonson, the number 10 pick, which became Jimmer Fredette.
Yeah, about that.
So yeah,
Man,
yeah, long
Benny's
time
really
ago.
making me feel old. He says he remembers me in Tahoe with Chris Webber in the early 2000s. That was a while ago, bro.
That was a little while ago. It was a little while ago.
was.
All right, so Sean, thanks for hanging out. We'll answer questions for a few. I think Brendan's got a little bit of time here, and
Yeah.
but
He's held captive. Where's he going?
yeah,
He's not-
he is
can't
held
even know where to
captive.
go.
Yeah.
If I jump off, what happens to your layout? Does it get all wonky? Does
Oh,
it
I
go,
just kick
like-
your ass. I don't know what you. I'll go like that,
okay,
and then
okay.
I'll just bump your ass and remove you. See you, Sean.
Bye.
Bye, friends. We'll take Sean out, and then let's see. Is this the right one?
To swap us, and there we go.
Boom. Look at that. It's like science. Hey,
First question for you.
Yeah.
Do we have any update on Keegan Murray?
Yes, we do have an update on Keegan Murray. Thanks for asking, Brendan. Keegan Murray is questionable for tomorrow. The Kings do not consider his injury like substantial at all. He is going to go to shoot around. They'll see him at shoot around. They'll see how he feels. After his shoot around, they'll reassess him, and then they'll see how he feels when he shows up for the game. And maybe there's a chance he's a game time decision, that he's a guy that goes in and like they'll have him like get warmed up and see what's happening. But he's going to be listed as questionable for Friday's game against the Spurs. And actually, I think that means something because they have Keldon Johnson, they have Devin Vassell, and like 2 guys that could actually fit in and like they're tough competition.
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you have any
totally.
other questions for me like that?
Um, I don't think I do off the top of my head. Obviously, glad to hear that Keegan's all right and it's nothing serious there. He is one of the guys I will say in the rotation that just looks lost more than other guys at times, but it's just typical rookie stuff in my mind. There's an aspect of getting used to Mike Brown's system, but there's also a whole aspect of Keegan Murray just having to get used to the NBA. And obviously he's got things going on off the court. So not concerned with Keegan or anything, but it's definitely still a learning process. But the more that he's out there, the quicker he can kind of get through that process.
Yeah. People are asking about the Jake Fisher tweet. I gotta be honest. I haven't I saw the Jake Fisher tweet. I haven't looked up the Mark Stein conversation that is included in this, and I am actually a subscriber to Mark Stein. I love his work. I think he's brilliant. But I don't have anything on the 3-team trade. I will tell you this: Jake Fisher has been in Sacramento for the last 3 days. He is hanging out. He'll be at the game tomorrow, and I've actually sat by him a couple of times. We haven't had a lot of conversation. He doesn't like the cookies in Sacramento, which instantly Sacramento media wanted to draw and quarter him. But he's an interesting dude. I don't think I had met Jake Fisher before this week, and he's been around the team a lot. And for those people who don't know, because we're discussing this, Sacramento is a hotbed for national writers. So Slater is here. He lives in El Dorado Hills. He got married and they moved up here. Sam Amick, of course, is in the area, and he's a national guy. Mark Spears lives in the Bay Area, but comes up all the time. Logan Murdoch, who writes for The Ringer, is again a national guy who his mom still lives here in Sacramento, and he's Sacramento, sort of born and bred. Although he did play college football at Laney College in Oakland. But yeah, there's a lot of guys, even Scott Howard Cooper, who wrote for NBA.com for years. Again, Sacramento guy who was around forever. This is kind of a hotbed. So we do I think it's an interesting thing, especially for a young guy like Brenden, to see these guys and you look around and you're like, holy cows, some of the biggest of the big heavy hitters in the NBA are at Kings games all the time. Chris Haynes, yes, Roger brings up Chris Haynes, who was at the game last night, who's probably been at 3 or 4 games already this season. And I'll even say this, Mike Brown, he kind of draws in some of these national guys because they all have relationships with him from his time in Golden State, and they've been around the team more. So I don't know. What is your thoughts on that? Because it's kind of interesting, Brenden.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome having all those guys around, obviously, and getting to pick people's brains and have those conversations. And it's definitely something that was surprising to me, but I guess it made sense as I thought about it. A lot of people just, whether being LA or the Bay Area, can also catch Sacramento games without all too much travel. And everybody has to come by Golden One at least once this year. So if people are trying to talk to other teams, you can do that in the process of being in Sacramento. So I think it's interesting. And when it comes to the Fisher tweet, like you said, I didn't see the Stein reporting yet either. But I think that Jay Crowder's fairly interesting. He's a guy when we're talking about being passable on offense and an impact defender. Not long ago, he fit that mold. I'm not 100% on where he's at on the defensive end at this point in his career, but I think that he's somebody that's intriguing. And specifically from Sacramento's point of view, my question would be is there an opportunity for them to get something for Rashawn Holmes? Because he's a 0 for them right now when it comes to production. And so if you could get something for Rashawn Holmes, a rotation player, it's obviously a big plus for this team.
Isn't that interesting? Like how Rashawn Holmes has become like more of a trade chip, and you're not sure if he's an actual trade chip because, I mean, he has 2 years left at like more than 25 million bucks. So, like, is someone going to take him on after this year? Like, he's got 2 years left. He has a player option for the final year at like 13 million bucks. Like, in a perfect world, I think Rashawn Holmes fits into like a pick and roll style offense and like flourishes again. But here in Sacramento, like he's fallen further and further on the depth chart. Someone brought up early in the chat if we may have seen like Rashawn Holmes at the four for the first time, and the answer is no. Rashawn Holmes, like they literally put their three backup centers on the court together, which Mezzi meant
But
to Alex Len
yeah,
and Rashawn Holmes.
right, right. Yeah, they all play together, and it's like, yeah, that's not him playing at the floor. That's we don't want Rashawn to not play minutes in the blowout, so we're gonna put him out there with our other bigs because it's what our bench is filled of.
Yeah,
So
totally. And
yeah,
Rory, yes, Howard Beck did go to Davis. He and I are both Davis alum. There's quite a few. Like Sac State has a really good journalism school, and the same goes. And you know what, Jason Jones was in the building last night. It, I know there are a lot of people out there who like Jason Jones is a Laker fan. Like Jason Jones, I it took a long time for he and I to get on the same page. Like he and I were not friends for a long time. But over the course of years and years, Jason and I became really good friends, and he's a very good dude. Whether he's a Kings fan or not, like no one should be a Kings fan. Your reporters shouldn't be Kings fans or Warriors fans or Lakers fans or anything else, because that's not our job. It's not our job to be fans anymore. We lose that fandom, but that doesn't mean that like Jason was always snarky and funny about stuff. But he's also a really good dude, and he writes for the Athletic, and he covers a lot of like alternative stuff, which I think is really good. And Jason's a good dude. He again, I don't think I'd seen him since uh 2000, well, right before the bubble happened. We hadn't seen, he didn't show up for the well, he wasn't part of the athletics coverage for the team while we had no fans in the building. So it's been a long time since we've seen Jason.
I remember seeing him a little bit right after Luke got fired. I think it was actually the Philadelphia game that was Alvin's first game,
Okay.
where there was nobody that played for Philly, but Andre Drummond and Tyrese Maxey went crazy,
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
and Jason was hilarious to sit next to that day.
Yeah, so Jason's been there, but it's been a while. It's been a while, so it's good to
Yeah.
see Jason. And you know what? Like while we're talking about that, a big shout out to Jason Anderson. Again, like Jason and I had a rough relationship to start, and we've worked a lot of our differences out over the course of time. And this is a competitive world, and part of it's that. There's plenty of things that I could go into there, and I'm not going to. But Jason took a job as the sports director at the Sacramento Bee, and Chris Biederman is going to step in and help cover the Kings on a more regular basis. And of course, Biederman he covered the 49ers for a long time, and he's a good writer. And I don't know why the Sacramento Bee decided to stop covering the 49ers, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. But, Chris had to take on a role, and that's what he does. And so anyway, big shout out to Jason. Do you guys feed us questions? Preston, yes. Adam Silver was at the game, and Preston, I haven't seen you in a long time. So next time you're in the arena, like drop by and see me. It's been a long time since Arco days. But yeah, Adam Silver was in the arena. I didn't see Adam. Did you see
I
him?
didn't even know. Do you know why? Like, is it just, he just peeks around at random times, or like, was there a specific reason?
Yeah, it's random. It is. Like I know he has friends in Reno, so on occasion, like family friends,
Okay.
he somehow ends up here in Sacramento. And like I had the the honor and privilege of being in Sacramento when David Stern stepped down right before the something was happening in Sac, and Adam Silver actually came to Sacramento for his first press conference and had his first press conference as a commissioner. Like again, Stern stepped away at a really odd time, and like I think we talked about this once before. The Kings decided to go to Folsom Prison for a night, which was really weird, and they had a bunch of guys play, not NBA players, but a lot of people that worked for the Kings. I think Luke played for a few minutes, but they played against prisoners, not prison guards, prisoners at Folsom Prison, and they invited the media, and we were there. And it was this really weird thing where they sequestered all of our phones and everything else, and they took everything. And we could only have like our cameras that we had to shoot and stuff like that, recorders, stuff like that. But when we got done, we walked outside of Folsom Prison after like this really, really long day in the freezing cold and no food, from what I can remember. We walked outside, and as soon as we turned on our phones, we learned that David Stern had had his massive stroke while we were in Folsom Prison that day, which was horrible. Because getting to do a bunch of press conferences is kind of like being around some of these like incredible sports reporters that like people watch on TV all the time and aren't such a big part of like the NBA world. Like being around David Stern was pretty special as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, crazy timing. Yeah, for you to not have any access to your phone or anything during that is, yeah, it's a crazy thing to come out to.
Yeah, and even like the walkway between Sauce and Golden One is David
Right.
J. Stern Walk. So it's like his street that was named after him before he passed away. Really, really interesting and incredibly bright human being. Let's see. Do we have any? You guys have any other questions for us?
I
Where's
will
her?
get back to my streaming. Sorry, saw
Oh,
someone in the
yeah,
chat
yeah,
asking.
go, yeah,
I will get back to this. Getting settled into my new place. That's why I'm still at my buddy's today, in the middle of dealing with AT&T and getting everything set up. So I don't even know how long, week or 2 weeks have been a mess. But yes, planning on getting back to that here pretty soon, actually. My Wi-Fi should be good tomorrow.
cool. Yeah, I want to see that because I think the one thing about Brenden coming on here is that I handle all the editing and all the posting and all that stuff. Like all these things take a ton of time, and what Brenden
Yes.
does at the King's Pulse podcast is very different and very unique and requires plenty of bandwidth. And so I really do think it's good that we promote Brenden, what Brenden does on his own outside of here. Someone asked where Harry Giles is. I got to be honest, I don't know where Harry Giles is, and that's a bummer. An incredibly talented and incredibly charismatic young dude that maybe needed a little bit more supervision, and like he just couldn't figure it out. And so I hope that he's still super young, because I know Marvin Bagley is still only 23 and Harry Giles is I think a year older, so like 24. And I hope that maybe he figures out a way to come around. And then there was something. Oh, Benny.
Mm.
Yeah, like, look, man, I don't know what happened there. I can even say this, like,
For the audio crowd, on it's the Dante Greene situation.
yeah, the Dante Greene situation is, it's not good. He was arrested, like, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, for allegedly armed robbery at like a gas station. I don't know the specifics, so I'm not going to get into all of that. I can just tell you that like I dealt with Dante quite a bit. He even like had us come over to his house for Small Market Big Heart, and we filmed him in his backyard. I covered him. He was a good dude. Liked the ladies. Got himself in plenty of trouble behind the scenes, but like overall, like I thought he was a good dude. And my friend John Santiago, who was with me on Cowbell Kingdom for like 4 years, and that's where I started podcasting, is with John Santiago. John actually, like, he moved to Tulsa at the beginning of this year for this weird pilot John basically does like all kinds of marketing and writing on the internet, and he can work from wherever. So he's worked in Colombia. Like I've talked to him while he's on a sailboat on the Adriatic Sea. I've talked to him while he's in Johannesburg, South Africa, like in Asia, all over the place. Actually, I talked to him the other day, and I think he was in Sweden and had some crazy story that was happening around him with people that he used to couch surf with. It was wild. But Dante Greene had like maybe 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, had put out that he was heading to Tulsa for something. John was in Tulsa, reached out to Dante and said, "Hey man, I'm in Tulsa. Do you want to hang out?" And him and Dante Greene, he picked Dante Greene up at the airport. They hung out for like an entire evening, had dinner and had drinks and like hung out. So I'm really surprised. He's really surprised. I hope everything works out for Dante, mainly because Dante's got 3 little boys that like I hope it works out for him. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, not great. Yeah. Yes. Outside of that, do we have any other questions? Kings get a win tomorrow. Maybe. I don't know.
They better. They
They
better.
better?
Yeah. What does a Marvin Bagley return game look like? We might have mentioned this on the last pod. Is there any world like does Bagley just get booed by the fan base? You think?
I think so.
Like
As someone who's been around
for
this
sure.
team
Is
long
there
enough.
any chance that he gets cheers?
I was surprised when after he refused to come into a game, he got in a game and was cheered. I was surprised by that. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Marvin Bagley will get some cheers. But I think there's a lot of baggage there.
Yeah.
Like I think his dad situation wasn't great and like continuously caused issues. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why did Dante and DeMarcus get into a fight in the locker room? Benny, that's a good question. I don't know the specifics, but I also know that wasn't the only altercation that happened in the locker room during that time, and it wasn't the only one that involved DeMarcus Cousins. And yeah, he was difficult at times, and I think Dante Greene at the same point is like so many other players in the league that come in with so much talent and never figure out how to fulfill that talent. And if you're a player like DeMarcus Cousins who's looking for people to get better and to be part of something that can be better and get you to the playoffs and win games and stuff, that can be frustrating as well. So one of my first years, I know Dante Greene was supposed to compete with Omri Caspi for the starting small forward spot, and he came into camp at 245 and then acted like he thought he was going to play some power forward. And that didn't go over real well, especially since his best friend on the team was Jason Thompson, who just happened to be the starting power forward. And like Dante Greene came in a good 25 pounds heavier than where he left the previous season. Yeah. Dwight Howard in Sacramento, yes or no, Brendan?
Oh God, no! Isn't he in like Taiwan or something? Forget
Carmelo
where
Anthony.
he signed.
He signed somewhere. Carmelo Anthony in Sacramento, yes or no?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
Are the Monarchs coming back? Preston, there have been rumors of that, like really quiet rumors for about a year. Whether that will happen or not, I have no idea. It's whether the league wants to expand, whether the expansion that they have planned is for other Northern California areas like Oakland that has a like really, really good semi-pro team from what I know. It's a good question. And it is very possible that we do see something like that, but it has to make financial sense for the Kings to do it. I will say this, that buying the River Cats doesn't make financial sense for anyone. So maybe they do bring back the Monarchs, but I will tell you that there have been rumors and some pretty interesting things that I've heard over the last like maybe 8 to 10 months that would lead me to believe that like it's more realistic than just saying, hey, can the Monarchs come back? It's much more realistic. Brendan, from Steven, what do you think? He asked me, but what do you think of the new City jersey?
I didn't like them when they were first announced. After they've been on, I think that I like them better than I thought I would. I don't love them, but I think they're good. The gray is different. I guess this is the first time it's said the full name Sacramento in a good while. Um, I like it. It's different. Yeah, I don't know that I would have gone with the gray. It, I don't love it, but I like it. So that there are definitely worse jerseys. Where are you
I'm
at?
I think I really like it. The gray is darker than it looked on like the pictures that we saw. I think all of the lettering and the numbering is very three-dimensional and cool. I thought when I looked at them, I was like, "Oh, those are really clever." I know my son went to a game, and while I'm not allowed to be a Kings fan, my son is a Kings fan, and I was able to get him a Keegan Murray city jersey, which he thought was really cool. I think that they're nice. Like, are they spectacular? I mean, it's gray, it's kind of drab, but I don't know. I kind of dig it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, and they kind of grow on me. And like Melissa asked, what's my favorite jersey? I don't really get into the jerseys that much. Like, Brendan, are you a jersey guy who like fully gets into like what's the best, what's not? I mean, the gold is by far the stupidest thing that ever happened to anyone ever. Like, I'm sorry if you like the gold, but like the Maloofs should have lost their franchise just for the gold jerseys alone. They were ridiculously stupid, and it was based off of a Las Vegas idea, like to tie the Las Vegas thing, like they were horrible. No, they were not. They were
Shout out
not
Will
right.
Griffith, who loves the gold jerseys
No,
and
the
is
worst. The
championing
worst.
those forever. I don't. I'm not super into jerseys, but like I definitely have certain jerseys that I love. Like I've always thought the Miami Vice jerseys are awesome. I don't know what's up with their ransom letters ones this year, but like I thought last year's was really cool. The Sacktown one for the Kings last year I thought was cool. The black with the cursive. I thought that was a really cool jersey. Normally I don't love when it says Sacktown, but I guess they did all right with that one. So no, I don't have too strong of opinions on jerseys, but there's ones that stand out as really good and ones that stand out as really bad, like that red that they did with the white
Oh
on the shoulders that said
no,
Sacktown. It was like, what are we
no,
doing here?
no! I didn't
Um,
like that.
yeah,
And the crazy thing is, Brennan, if you would have done the red at Arco, that would have been okay because the original colors had red and the seats were red and blue. So you could have got away with something like that. I actually really like the baby blues, like the original baby blues. I didn't even mind the royal blues. And when they brought the royal blues
those
back,
were cool.
yeah, I thought they were cool too. Like it brings you back to the Mitch Richmond, like that era of Kings basketball. Again, I didn't mind the like. I wish they'd bring back the checkerboard or the all black. The black jerseys I thought were really cool in the early 2000s. They had all kinds of crazy stuff.
They have to bring those back at some point. Like the fan base has been clamoring for that one. Yeah, they
Yeah.
have to do that eventually.
Okay. Do we have any final questions? Let's see. I could use some parenting advice, Mr. Ham. I don't know what parenting advice you have, IPH. Like I'm not sure. Like you can reach out to me jameshamnba@gmail.com. I can give you parenting advice. I've done so. Like I'm almost through my second time. I haven't caught any. Callum has asked, but also a lot of other people have asked about Sasha Vazenkov. Have you watched any Sasha Vazenkov?
No, James, I have not. Believe it or not, I have not caught any of Sasha Bezenkov so far this year.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so IPH, getting teething baby to sleep. Here you go. The best way is there's something called teething tablets by Arrowroot. You can get them, and basically they're these little tiny things that almost look like the itty bitty Smarties, and you rub them on the gums, and it soothes the baby very quickly. It takes away, and they're made by Highlands, and they come in a bottle about this big. You can find them at the grocery store, and they're called teething tablets. Those are the bomb. So there you are. I do have baby advice: how to get a teething baby to sleep. Hit them with teething tablets, and then the easiest way to get a baby to sleep is to load them with food. So when they're even if you add a little bit of formula in with not formula, but like the baby food oatmeal and stuff, if you add a little bit of that into their formula or breast milk, it helps them like fill their belly up and go to sleep. So hopefully that helps you. Yes, teething tablets, Arrowroot. Yes. I was writing it, and they're made by Highlands. There you go. Excellent. Is there anything else we have? Thoughts on Vazenkov with this squad? I think Vazenkov would be really interesting. Just another shooter, another scorer, but this Kings team needs someone that will block shots. And so that to me is what their biggest need is. Rodney Hood, what are your thoughts on Rodney Hood?
Yeah, I mean, can he still play? I don't know. If we're talking about adding somebody to the team, they need to add something defensively because the offense is already figured out,
Okay. Yeah,
Somebody
I
said
agree.
I'm taking notes in different colors. Do people know about my
Who?
colored notes?
They did. Damien talked about this. We had a conversation about this, I think on Monday. Brenden takes like incredible
I
notes
actually have
during
them right
games.
here.
Okay. Oh yeah, there we go. But you can't really see the colors. But Brenden also has like how many 5 or 6 different colored pens next to you while you're watching a game?
Yeah, it's probably 5, and I color code throughout the course of the whole game. It's
What
probably
are
the
your
most
color
psycho
codes?
thing I do. I have black is just normal. Blue is anything to do with rotations. Green and red are just good and bad. And then purple is anything that I maybe want to talk about in post game pressers.
Okay. See, to me that's incredible. And I take 0 notes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the complete opposite. I have a really strange memory, and I also look for when I'm watching a game. I look for themes, and they stick in my head. And then when you get my quick thoughts at the end of a game, I usually can. First of all, I can churn those like super quick, but I try to wait as long as I can. I fill in stats as I'm going. But the 6 thoughts are my equivalent of notes. But even when I did TV, I never took notes to the set. Like on occasion, I'd have like 3 bullet points of the questions that might get asked of me. And then if I had a quote from someone in the locker room, I would always write the quote out so I would know it. But outside of that, I don't take, even like for the podcast, I didn't take notes at all for like the show prep. I knew the topics that we were going to discuss. I wrote them beforehand in the description, but I didn't I didn't write anything. Sometimes I do. I have maybe like 10 things or 8 things or 5 things and they're just bullet points. And then I'll tell the guys, hey, we're going to talk about Keegan Murray getting injured. We're going to talk about Terence Davis big game. We're going to talk about TNT. We're going to talk about Sabonis coming around. We're going to talk about the offense. But outside of that, I don't take a bunch of notes, and I that's just not the way. I don't like to. I like to speak extemporaneously. If that makes sense.
You seem like you have really good memory, and a big reason of me doing my notes this way is just because I have really bad memory. And it may not seem that way with basketball stuff, but it's just because like I have to process it in multiple ways. Obviously watching it, but writing it down helps me remember. Talking about it later on a pod helps me remember. Writing about it helps me remember. So it's a way of me making up for my shitty memory.
Yeah. Someone asked who I'm a soccer dad. Who's my World Cup team? I gotta go Team USA. I know they're not gonna win. They're not gonna perform that well, but like, look, that's part of the fun of it. And I watch a lot of U.S. players playing in Europe, and I also watch a lot of Man U because that's my son's team. We do watch a bunch of soccer here, and if anyone is ever planning a trip to Europe, I highly suggest you plan your trip around either a World Cup or a Euro Cup. Being in cities when games are going on, not like you don't have to be in Paris when they're playing at like PSG Stadium or whatever. But if you're in cities while games are going on, if you're in Munich while Germany is in the World Cup, it's one of the best, purest forms of like enjoying someone else's culture, especially because they love their soccer. Like some of you love your basketball, or some people love their football or their college football, and it's really really cool to watch like culturally. So that's fun. Yeah, there's all kinds of, like I love it. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Well, like one last question. Do you have anything you want to pick out of this group here? Um, David Flores Workman is asking a Batman question. Who is a better Batman, George Clooney or Adam West? I mean,
That's a question for you, not me.
yeah, I mean, come on, man. And like, have I watched a bunch of Adam West? No, I haven't watched much. I've watched some Adam West, but Clooney was not great at all. Michael Keaton to me is the best Batman. Christian Bale is probably second. I thought he was pretty incredible. I don't know. Like, that's what I got. That's what I got for you there. All right, man. I think that's going to wrap it up. If you're still watching, and we still have over 200 people in here, please give us a thumbs up if you're still watching. That would be great. Also, if you're listening tomorrow, give us a rating and review on wherever you're listening. Subscribe to the Kings Beat YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Kings Beat on iTunes or wherever you're listening to your podcasts. Also, jump on board with the Kings Beat. The Kings Beat, you can do a free subscription, although we're gating a lot of content now. But premium subscription is very affordable, and we're churning content like nonstop, and you're getting all kinds of stuff for that. We do not have a guest yet for the next Kings Beat Virtual Happy Hour. We don't have a date yet. I think we do have a guest. We don't have a date. But remember that we usually do these on Thursdays, and our Thursday next week is killed by Thanksgiving. So we cannot, of course, do that. I don't know. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts?
The Kings are playing this good without Keon Ellis even being part of the team yet, so I can only imagine how good this is really going to be.
I hear you. I mean, I believe in Keon Ellis. Say he's playing really well in the G League as well. Is that all your final thoughts? I'm glad you're kind of.
That's all I got.
That's all you got.
Yeah, I can't wait to be settled into my new place. My background, I already got set up a little bit. It's gonna be nice, and I'm doing it out to be part of it. But yeah, I'm excited to get all settled into my new place.
Look at that. We dropped for like 2 seconds. It switched stuff like weird. Like, yeah, you're excited to get set up in your new place. The tie, Callum, the tie was sitting on the rack behind him, and Sean and I made him go put the tie on in the first part of the podcast. We were just messing with him. Peja for the happy hour. That's interesting. I haven't thought about Peja. It just depends on if Peja is far enough away from everything. I would love to have him and maybe even his son come on the happy hour. But like I've had a great relationship with Peja over the years, and that's a good one. I haven't thought about bringing in Peja or Vlade, and I certainly I want to make sure that we're respectful of their space and all that stuff. But we will have a happy hour really soon. I mean, like I'm thinking probably the week after Thanksgiving, but we have to figure all of this out. It's complicated during the middle of the season. Okay, final thoughts from me. You know what? I'm going to say this, and I don't do this very often, and this is not meant as anything other. Go get some tickets for a Kings game because, my goodness, the fans have been incredible. The team is fun to watch. Win or lose, they are fun to watch. Go get a ticket, bring your kids, start the next generation of kids coming to Kings games. It kills me that there's this entire generation of kids that are not Kings fans, and it's why I talk about things like Tim Lincecum mullets and weird like De'Aaron Fox spiky haired hats. Like, get the kids involved. Because I cover the team. Like, my oldest is a Kings fan, but my youngest, like, he has no attachment. They've never been good. He doesn't really have, he's got a lot of friends who are Warriors fans. So bring your kids to the games. Enjoy the ride here. Go outside and take a picture of the beam going up when they get a win. Because this feels like a little different, and I don't want to say that too loudly, but it does feel different this year, and hopefully we'll see something positive here in the next couple of weeks as they start to build. That's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. We've gone over 2 hours. It's a live show. I think all of you, we still have a ton of people in here. Again, thumbs up, rating, reviews, all that stuff. It does help us in the algorithm that is the YouTube. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking around as long as you have. And I'm just going to do it for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham, who is no longer with us. He left and had to go back to work. And Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. I'm James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you later this week.